Okay, I put out the call on social media. Give me your spiciest takes for what 2025 will have in store for the accounting profession. And y'all delivered. You delivered. And that's what we're talking about today. Some of the stuff you weirdos came up with. Some really smart stuff. And some stuff that's a little bit off the wall. Okay, let's talk about it. 2025, here we come. Cannonball. Ollie, ollie, oxen, free. So yesterday on the main YouTube channel, I put out kind of a roundup of what I'm buying and selling for 2025. Pretty more normal stuff. If you listen to this podcast much, it's a bunch of takes that you've probably already heard. But enough about what I think. I'm interested in what y'all think. So let's start running through this list of stuff I captured from social media. Logan Graff, the one and only, he says, I'm trusting in your prediction that tax return intake software plus data going into tax software is going to be nuts. Bro, it already is. What do you mean it's going to be nuts? It already is nuts. The job, I talked about this in the tax predictions video a couple weeks ago, but the job in my firm of the person who would take all of the information that a client gave us, and they would do that initial review, go down the list of what do we have and what do we still need. That was actually a really big process improvement for our tax firm, because what would normally happen is they would drop off a bunch of stuff or send it in, and it would sit for a month sometimes in our busiest season before we would even touch it, and then we would ask questions. And so we made it somebody's job. Every time somebody brings in their 1040 info, you're going to do an initial scan, what do we need still, to immediately follow up. And the perceived level of service from clients there was way higher. A great lesson in how oftentimes the thing that actually won't get the project done any sooner will still give the client the perception that they're being better taken care of. But that entire job of doing that initial scan of what do I need and not need, it has been fully automated. And that wasn't the case 12 months ago. That's now been fully automated because the clients or your team can submit those documents to whatever tool you use to do tax intake, and it will tell you, what are you still missing? What do you still need? Is it perfect? No, but neither was that initial cursory scan, and the tool will do follow-up with your clients until they get you all that information without you having to lift a finger. That's really exciting. So don't give me this, I'm trusting that it's going to get good. What I'm excited about is what happens next, because these companies that have nailed tax intake are in the driver's seat to do some really cool work paper prep stuff. What is the next step of organizing that information further? Some of them have integrations with tax software, but man, integrations with tax software is what does that actually mean? But there's an intermediary step there between doing the intake and putting it in the tax software. That is building work papers, whose jobs ultimately are to prove to me what the correct answer is that I can then validate in the tax return. And that's honestly what I'm really, really excited for. That's something that AI is going to be a really big help on. So while this intake stuff is exciting, it's frankly table stakes for what could be next. And for the bookkeepers out there who are already bored with this podcast episode, I want the same for you. I really, really do. I hope we get some cool new bookkeeping tech, tools doing better stuff with documentation and with additional sources of context, because it's that context that oftentimes dictates what the correct classification ought to be. But again, still the biggest issue I see with bookkeeping technology right now is the AI bookkeeping tech people are oh, classifications. We've gotten to 99% accuracy on classification, up from 97%. Buddy, that's not what I spend all my time on during the month-end close. Give me the tool that actually handles the month-end close from beginning to end, not just classifies transactions, because I'm not spending that much time on transaction classification as it is, okay? Okay, Adam Markowitz says Intuit's going to come back with a marketing scheme even worse than the tax breakup nonsense. Adam, Intuit coming back with a marketing scheme that makes accountants look dumb. That's the free space at the center of the 2025 bingo card. Do we need a bingo card for 2025 for the accounting profession? We might. Mike Sylvester, the man himself. I think VCs will continue to buy into mostly large CPA firms. And I think there will be more consolidation among firms, many of these because they want to sell to VC. Oh, the old PE debate. I mean, as long as people want to retire, yes, we're going to keep optimizing for an exit. I just think, and that y'all are not generally the folks who are building to a PE exit. I just think building almost any type of business to an exit is just kind of a sucky way of going through things. Like if you look at Bench, the whole issue with Bench at the end of the year and how they disappeared overnight before they got acquired, but like there's still a ton of customers, employees that are left in a lurch. Imagine if you built Bench and that was a really amazing service and it was successful and it didn't run out of money. Imagine if you built an amazingly successful version of Bench, and then how it ended was you sold it for a stupid sum of money, more than you could ever actually spend, and it hosed everybody else. The employees had to go to work for somebody else that they didn't want to work for. The customers probably experience a much worse version of the service. Everybody gives lip service and says, oh, everything's going to be the same. It's going to be great. In fact, there's going to be these economies of scale and synergies now that we can tap into that'll make everything better. Buddy, no. That's no. I struggle to think of any business outcome that ends with the owner selling that doesn't hose everybody but the owner. And maybe I am too, what's the word? I'll just say it. Maybe I'm too great of a person. Maybe I just care too much for capitalism. When I was running my accounting firm, like the notion of selling it just always sucked. Unless I was doing an internal sale, which is really, really hard unless you've got like 3 people buying out one person. Oh, every version of that just seems like it sucked. More from Mike Sylvester. I think more and more people will break away from firms where they are overworked and start their own firms. Real talk, man. That's a thing. And I think actually the content I put out helps with that, shining a spotlight on like, hey man, there's actually like a better way of running a firm. And if you work for a sucky firm, there are better options out there. In fact, we killed we are killing Jason.careers, which was a great idea. It was basically a service that said the accounting firms who tune into my content, good on you. They're super modern firms doing their best to continue being progressive. But for most of the accountants who tune into my content, you're working for a legacy firm more often than not. And so my thinking with that service was, we'll just take all the accountants in my audience and get the accounting firms in my audience to hire them. Would be a cool little business. And arguably that's like maybe the most powerful thing you can enable with content like this is like making real human connections. Well, the problem was, as it turns out, is all of you people looking for jobs with firms are like 2 or 3 years from launching your own firm. And I can't, in good faith, go and charge somebody's accounting firm to hire you when you're telling me, yeah, I'm looking for a gig, but it's really just until I start my own thing. So it turns out, when you tell people that there is a better way to run accounting firms, they find a new level of confidence inside themselves to go out and do their own thing. And frankly, that is great. That is the American dream, even if you're not an American. This episode is sponsored in part by LiveFlow. Hey, it's New Year's time. People turning up to the gym in record numbers. And if you ate like I did over the holidays, oh boy, is it time to cut back. I'm not proud. But you know one area of our firms that we don't talk about being lean enough with? The information we put in front of our clients. Good golly. The reports we run from our tax software, from our accounting ledgers, you actually think the clients look at that? They sure don't. I can't even get them to read my email, let alone go through a 60-page report. And so if that balance sheet and profit and loss is not something that your client's actually gonna make sense of, or God forbid, the report from, I don't know, your tax planning software, your B&A, gross. If they're not gonna make sense of that, maybe it's time for a better way to put information in front of your client, AKA LiveFlow's new financial dashboards. They can be as sweaty or as simplified as you like. You can connect them with a QBO or a Zero file so they'll pull that data in automatically, and you can augment them with any sort of additional information you want to. I'm a big Notion nerd. It's the closest thing I've seen to Notion for financial stuff. Pretty cool. Okay, we did actually a demo of the new financial dashboard stuff on the YouTube channel recently. Just go search Jason on Firms, LiveFlow, Simple Financial Dashboard, YouTube video. Just pop that in the YouTube search bar, you'll find it. Or check out the link down in the show notes. This episode is sponsored in part by Team Up, the people who help you find talented accountants in the Philippines, but hire them directly. Very common progression I see from firms who lean into offshore hiring for the first time is they turn to like some offshore megacorp. And it's like this big skyscraper where they put folks in there and they're maybe scared about security things and all that, understandably, the first time they work with people offshore, and they're like, oh yeah, give me this big sanitized environment where they like strip search everybody before they go into work at the beginning of the day and they leave, and it's like, this is fundamentally more secure than the way that we do our work onshore. Like, I can understand how this works. But before you know it, you're paying this group like you're paying them as much money to employ those people as you're actually paying the people. And when 50 cents of every dollar that you pay goes to some other company instead of the actual person you employ, that's just a bummer, man. That's just a bummer. So a lot of firms I know transition to just hiring people directly. That is what TeamUp specializes in. No middle people. You're just engaging that person to work with you the same way you would somebody onshore. And 100% of that money is going straight to the person. $100. Dollar out of your pocket, dollar into their pocket. Guess it wouldn't be a dollar, it'd be whatever the local currency is. You get the idea. To learn more about TeamUp, check out a link down in the show notes. Mary says, I'm pretty sure the IRS will be defunded, causing some agents to go rogue, and we're going to have a new threat of vigilante audits. IRS getting defunded? I mentioned this in a newsletter, and I don't know, obviously I don't talk politics, but reality is Musk adores this Argentinian president guy. I can't remember his name. Fascinating interview with him, not Musk, the Argentinian president, on Lex Friedman's podcast. They basically stripped the government way back. He literally shut down their equivalent of the IRS and spun up a new organization with different people. Defunding the IRS might be the best case scenario here. They may literally rip that thing out. And I'd actually be interested to poll tax professionals. And unfortunately, this gets super tied up into where you land on the political spectrum, I think. But if you just polled tax professionals and somebody put together a PowerPoint slide deck that was like, hey, here's what we're thinking for a new version of the IRS. We think we're just going to kill the old one, and here's our vision for the new one. I suspect a lot of tax professionals would probably get on board. There's so much legacy stuff in the IRS and the technology and all that. How do you possibly bring that around? And is it easier just to let it die, just to take it out back and to spin up something new? That question is so far beyond my pay grade, it's not even funny. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if something insanely off the wall happened with the tax system. This one from the controller: fewer small firm acquisitions. Interesting. More larger ones and PE firms buying other PE firms. I have heard of a few of these kind of first level PE roll-ups now getting bucketed into bigger roll-ups. This is actively happening. A quickening of retirements before new tax law. That's interesting. That could absolutely be a thing. If there was some huge change in tax stuff, man, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't even near retirement that are going to be seriously considering retirement. The BOI reporting has almost done that. More from the controller. Solo firm owners recognize they can't sell their 1040 books. So more contingency agreements with other firms, like outsourcing your 1040 work to other firms. There's definitely a growing category of client that doesn't have value. In fact, if you look at Bench and how that's sold kind of at the very last minute, man, you got to think Bench, they knew they were going to shut down at the end of the year and had to have been having conversations with all sorts of different people. They support somewhere in the ballpark of 25,000 small businesses, and nobody wanted to buy Bench's book. It went as far as them saying that we're just shutting down before an acquisition actually did happen. But there's almost this, almost like this barbell thing happening with the market for accounting firms, where I actually see a really, really juicy market for well-run modern accounting firms, but a worse than ever before market for the stinkers and, the firm's still doing stuff on paper. We talked with Rebecca Driscoll. She got over 100 LOIs when she posted on social media in a few places that she was selling her little cloud accounting practice. And there's a real big part of me that's what if we just spun up a couple accounting firms every single year? I would have a big advantage in, I guess, the market of buyers I would have for an accounting firm that I put together. In fact, you could, if you play this out to the extreme, I could literally find the people who I could approach and be in 36 months time, I think I can build you this firm with this tech stack and this profile, this profit margin. Would you agree right now to buy it for X multiple and get a really good premium for that? For people who are capable of doing that and running a really modern firm, there's a great market out there for you. And I'm hoping there's more of a peer market as well, because a lot of the brokers I see are kind of stuck working with those older firms. Brokers also pump a lot of misinformation into the world around what multiples people are getting and that sort of thing that by and large are not realistic. So at the top end, there's a ton of demand for really good firms, but I would also probably agree that at the bottom end, it's worse than it's ever been before. The controller said fewer small firm acquisitions. I don't know. We saw Carbon launched a practice marketplace, which is free for Carbon users, where you can go no brokers involved. You can go and trade accounting firms like Pokemon cards. treat them like Pokemons? It's a little harder than that. But I think the fluidity of the market is getting better. I think like communities, like there's been a number of firm transactions that have happened from folks within my accountant community that have just met each other, and then ultimately they go on to do a merger or one sells to the other. I actually think let's just say the broader accounting community, as there's a new generation, maybe new generation is not the right thing to say. There's just a growing number of firm owners who know each other and work together and are collaborative. That I think will actually accelerate the changing hands of either accounting firms or even just part of those client bases. Andrew Noble on LinkedIn, a real mood killer here. A slow dawning realization that accountants are going the way of candlestick makers. I don't know how candlesticks are made these days. Andrew is actually an accountant. An analogy here to like a framing that we can get our heads around that I think sums up a lot of tech transition right now. We look at like all-in-one practice management systems. Everybody wants them to be able to do everything for you, right? And you may be able to see that right now, everything that you want it to do, they could reasonably build in the next 24 months. And so you could be like, okay, cool. In 24 months, it'll do everything for me. The reality is 24 months from now, somebody else is going to have created all these other cool things that don't exist today that you will then want the all-in-one provider to do. And that's just kind of the unknowable, like this thing that's over the next hill that you can't see yet. Because all the cool stuff the practice management systems do now, or that we want them to do now, it's all new like workflow stuff that wasn't really a thing a couple years ago. And I think being an accountant, it's similar. The stuff that we do is absolutely going to change. But obviously we have this tremendous shortage of accountants. So access to help on the other side of the equation for small business owners has never been harder than it is right now. I think the accountants who fall in love with making candlesticks, that like you're gonna have a hard time. But that's kind of how it's always been. Like if what you enjoy is keying in transactions, then the bank fees were really bad for you. So as long as we have a willingness to continue to evolve and do new things, I think we're fine. And the reality is it happens in itty bitty ways. Although AI could make that happen faster than tech changes of the past. But like tax intake tools are a great example. They've fundamentally automated a part of the process that was very, very manual. I mean, if I combine the time that we spent reviewing 1040s when they came in for what info that we needed, but then also the total time that my professional team spent tracking down clients for information and figuring out what we have and what we don't have, that was well and truly over a quarter of my professional staff's time during busy season. Like maybe more if you factor in just how much hounding clients for information you would do. If you eliminate all of that, like that's a huge, huge time savings. So am I then going to go to my tax staff? Let's say this saves them a third of their time. Am I going to go lay off a third of my tax staff as soon as I onboard that tax intake app? No, I'm not. I'm just not, because it still feels like there's a whole lot of other stuff to do. Sushil Basnet, software providers like QBO will ditch accountants and the tax pro. The earlier apology was dishonest. They'll come back with a different plan, maybe acquire some other companies to do the dirty work. Intuit will probably continue distancing themselves from accounting professionals. Sasan Godarzi, the CEO, has said many, many times they are now a done for you and a done with you company. So like Intuit is in the business of helping people do the work and doing the work for them. And it's their fastest growing stuff, their consumer products, the TurboTax Live like Assist stuff, the QuickBooks Live bookkeeping. We saw all that stuff with Bench at the end of the year, with Bench going under. Who's in the best position to nail that? It's Intuit. Like it just is. Nobody builds financial products like Intuit right now. Imagine the US tax system without TurboTax, right? I mean, that would be outrageous. OG, like old Intuit under Brad Smith. Yes, they were an advisor first company, but that's just not Intuit anymore. Can we just stop being butthurt by Intuit? My goodness. There's no reason why you need to be using Intuit at all in your practice. If you are, that's a choice. I took my entire practice off of Intuit in 2018 when they were doing the stupid free file stuff. That was also when they were first started to promote like QuickBooks Live bookkeeping inside of QBO files. Maybe I should just stop giving like any attention to people that are complaining about Intuit, because working with Intuit is a choice. This episode is sponsored in part by Cloud Accountant Staffing. Hey, scenario. What if you had this buddy that was running another accounting firm and they stumbled into this thing and they start hiring these really good offshore accountants in the Philippines, and you're talking with them one day and your buddy's like, hey, I got some really good people here. You want me to hook you up? You want me to find you a few accountants? What would you say? Would you be like, nah, I'm good. I can find accountants all day long. I don't need more accountants in my firm. Poppycock. You'd be like, tell me more. That's what working with cloud accountant staffing is, because the team behind cloud accountant staffing, they were literally just an accounting firm that started hiring people in the Philippines, had really good luck, like I did with the quality of who they picked up, and then they just started doing it for other firms. It's kind of as simple as that. If you're looking for somebody who understands you, who just works with accounting firms, not some rando sending you cold DMs on LinkedIn, a group that actually does this stuff just with accountants, check out Cloud Accountant Staffing, link down in the show notes. This episode is sponsored in part by Makers Hub. If you tune into much of my stuff, you know that I'm a big fan of how Makers Hub is using AI to crush the accounts payable headaches of accountants everywhere. Arguably the domain and accountingdom that is being most disrupted by AI. Well, they recently shipped support for purchase orders. Good golly gosh, how much I hate purchase orders, but they are a necessary evil for companies of a certain size. But it turns out that purchase order matching, matching the invoice to the PO to the receiving slip, whatever you want to call it, turns out that's way, way easier when your AP tool does like rock solid line item extraction. Got my hands on with the PO system that they just plugged in recently. Super, super impressive. If you have clients that struggle with this like I did, oh my gosh, Makers Hub is about to probably save them a whole heckin' lot of time. Learn more about that one. Check out I've got a couple videos on Makers Hub on YouTube that are like quick 5-minute demos. Otherwise, I'll link their website down in the show notes. Ashley Francis, Dream Ideas. She's organized her thoughts into both dreams and nightmares. A dream idea: more specialized niche firms will pop up that operate as service providers to accounting and tax firms. She gives the example of Sabrina Paris, who's like a salt expert that just consults with accounting firms now. I love that. In fact, on my main channel video, accountants supporting accountants, like coaches, stuff like that. I'm totally on board that. Another dream idea: even though AI agents will be the thing for 2025, more accounting firms will start discovering custom GPTs and copilots and building them internally. Yes, please. Custom GPTs are so powerful, you can share them with the entire team. Last dream idea here: all the people that say AI is fake will finally figure out how to use it properly. And then nightmare ideas: fake accounting and tax firms will pop up on the internet and get credibility via AI-generated videos. Probably. I mean, that's increasingly a thing on social media platforms. Dating sites were the real innovators here, like populating dating sites with good-looking people who are not actually real. But social media platforms, for sure, the people you see there are many of them are not real, and it only makes sense that would extend to like businesses. Like they look totally legitimate. I mean, I've seen your landing page. Wouldn't be hard for somebody to come along and copy something to that level and say, yeah, we're an accounting firm too. Other nightmare idea: OpenAI will once again release a model, and the whole introduction video will just be the model preparing tax returns. That's a reference to the GPT-4 announcement live stream from OpenAI. Their little one more thing party trick at the end was, let's prepare Becky's tax return. And then last nightmare idea: the IRS gets their funding cut again, and all the IRS agents that had answered the phones before are just replaced with pre-2022 chatbots. Oh, I could absolutely see the IRS going all in on chatbots. Would that be a bad thing? There's a version of chatbots that can go way harder than IRS support today. Whether it's a good version of support, I don't know. Jonathan Gibson, a one-stop shop software sales pitch that gets 70% of the way there instead of 40%. Jonathan, we just covered this, Jonathan. Even if you're 70% today, by the time they build that 70%, will now be 40% because there's going to be new cool stuff. I talked about this a bit in yesterday's video, but all-in-one works at a time of tech stagnation. If nothing's changing and nothing new or cool is happening, you can build all-in-one. You can build it all in one platform. Last 5 years, maybe that's kind of been the case because all the PMs started to look the same, right? But when stuff is happening and new companies are doing cool new stuff, which I would argue is happening right now in most spaces in accounting, the all-in-ones can't keep up, and so all-in-ones fall apart. Or the notion of like having a perfect all-in-one, which isn't really realistic, but it gets even harder in a period of innovation. And buddy, I want to be in a period of innovation, okay? Mohsen Chowdhury selling that the AI bubble will pop and reshape the industry where the real products with real use cases survive, much like the dot-com bubble. Bench was just a preview. Bench wasn't an AI company, but agreed AI bubble needs to pop. we need to get back to real use cases. I mean, most of the cool accounting stuff in the last few years has had nothing to do with AI. I mean, Write Tool, a Chrome extension that makes QuickBooks better, Keeper, month-end close automation. They're working on the month-end close. They're not working on classification. Yes, let's get like AI focused back to like what's actually helpful. DJ Bola, an accounting software that has basic necessary features for a firm all in one app. It does QBO stuff, Keeper, ShareFile, Write Signature, Tax Planner Pro. Okay, so you just want all in one? This is what are we buying and selling, people? This isn't just give me your wish list. To be clear, I would love it if an app did all those things, was my accounting ledger, could help me manage month-end closes. In fact, the first two things he lists here, QBO and Keeper, I've been shouting at the mountaintops at all the ledger providers that what they need to develop is the most profitable place for me to run an accounting firm, which means getting month-end closes done. So give me that 10,000-foot view of like, how do I manage 100 month-end closes in one platform rather than just a client picker and like switching back and forth between ledgers, because that's all the ledgers have given us right now. So 100% agreed that I would love Xero, I would love Intuit to invest more in the 10,000-foot view of managing month-end closes and all that entails. But to say that that's going to get built in with like a ShareFile and a tax planning tool, that is a take too hot for me, my friend. Don Scranton, the Electric City. My 2025 prediction is AI agents learn and build inter-software connectors via voice commands. I'm going to say that again. AI agents learn to build inter-software connectors via voice commands. Don, you are speaking my language. If there's something I'm really excited for like AI to do for us, it's to take away all the awful stuff. Like, can you automate my tax software, which is just a really, really dumb tool? Can I tell an AI agent, go do my bidding and enter this W-2 over there or do this thing over there so that I don't have to look at that god-awful tool? But yeah, integrations too. And we're maybe seeing the beginnings of this with AI coding and programming becoming really, really good. And I've heard from a growing number of firms that are actually building their own software with accountants, like they don't have programmers on staff. They're using AI to build their own software. And that definitely comes with its limitations right now. It's far, far from perfect. But in an age when anyone can dictate software and tell it what to do, then yeah, I mean, that's kind of a logical next step, the notion that we can build our integrations between platforms. Now, the rub is integrations are big business. And a lot of tools don't give you a way to integrate for a reason. That is not like, we haven't got to that nirvana of cloud accounting where it's like, oh, we can all have APIs and every app will talk to every other app and perfectly integrate. That was kind of like the promise of the cloud, right? A lot of that stuff doesn't exist for business reasons. The exciting thing about AI agents is because they could ultimately use a computer the same way a human does, they could just navigate like literally in two tabs. They can navigate this system, switch to the other tab, navigate the other system the same way that you do. Like, man, that's so exciting. And if you've played with ChatGPT voice stuff at all, and you know just like how compelling and realistic and intelligent that feels, the most exciting aspect of AI agents to me is just having that running dialogue with an AI assistant on my computer and telling it to go do things and be like, okay, we got to move this data from this system to that system. Here's how to go do it. Let me know if you have any questions and do this on the 4th of every month for me. Like the notion of that being the future of how we get work done, man, that is so exciting to me. When I go around and I give talks at conferences, I've got a few different keynotes that I do, but the one that I've done more than anything else is I basically paint a picture of like, here are the most disruptive things that AI is probably going to do in the next 24 months. And if you eliminate all those things and you imagine not having to do all those things and having these tools at your disposal, being on the other side of that, holy moly, does it sound pretty good. And so like the talk, which is frustrating because like I never try to be the AI won't replace you guy, because AI will replace people. It absolutely will. And anybody who is like shouting this from the mountaintops saying AI won't replace accountants, they've got no freaking clue. Nobody does. We don't know what AI will look like 6 months from now, but it feels good. Like you're pandering to something that, people will be like, yeah, no, okay, I do that. Does make me feel better. Thanks. And a lot of these conferences, like that's what they want you to be. They want you to come and tell everybody everything's going to be all right. And I hate that because I don't think that serves anyone to do that. But this talk, like it ends up being pretty rah-rah because it's like, okay, like let's even consider the extreme scenarios where AI agents are really, really good. And like of all the possible timelines we're looking at, consider the ones where AI is most powerful. Even in those timelines, my job seems a lot better. I don't see it yet. I don't see like the fear on a 10-year time horizon. It's honestly like anybody's guess for any type of knowledge work, not just accounting. But for all the people that love to like pick on accounting as it being an easy thing to automate, on the spectrum of like different types of knowledge work, I actually think accounting is probably on the harder end of the spectrum. I think anyway, maybe that's my bias just because I'm closer to the complexities of it. But it isn't on the simple end of the spectrum for the same reason that, Bench didn't work out. And we haven't had these VC-backed solutions come in and ultimately automate an accounting department. You got hot takes? I want to hear them. Drop them down in the comments. It's going to be a fun year. Very excited for how AI continues to shape our space. And you better believe we're going to be here talking about it, okay? Thanks for coming and hanging.